I want to welcome everybody to our ASTRO 3D third annual science meeting. This is our first fully virtual science meeting, and I'm hoping that if it's successful, then we can have many more virtual meetings like this. I'm very excited to see how it goes, and looking forward to interacting with you all virtually today. First, I want to acknowledge country. I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. That's in each of our home states and countries, wherever we are. And I also would like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Now, when Indigenous Australians talk about traditional country, it means something beyond the dictionary definition of the word. So I think, it's important for us to think about that. For Indigenous Australians, country might mean homeland or their tribal or clan area, but it also might mean more than just a place on the map. In addition, country is a word for all the values and places, resources, stories, and cultural obligations that are associated with that area and its features. And it also describes the entirety of the Indigenous ancestral domains. So when we do an acknowledgement of country and the traditional owners of the land, we're actually talking about much more than the countryside or the bush. Also, when we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, I think it's really important for us to reflect on Indigenous pathways and how we can do better as a community. In his white paper for the next centre to ASTRO 3D, our Education Outreach Officer, who's online today, Dwayne Hamaker, he's the Education Outreach Officer at Melbourne, he noted that in the report called Indigenous Engagement with Science Towards Deeper Understandings, the Indigenous people are less likely to be employed in professional, scientific or technical service jobs than non-Indigenous people. And it's actually approximately 2% compared to 7%. So there's only 2% employed in these professions compared to it should be 7% based on the fraction of Indigenous peoples in our population. So there's really a clear need for action to mentor, graduate and employ more Indigenous Australians as scientists, and in order to reach rates of employment comparable to those of non-Indigenous people. So in ASTRO 3D, we'll be beginning an Indigenous Work Experience program, and I want to encourage all of you to contribute to that program and also to help provide mentoring to Indigenous students, because we really need to provide better pathways for Indigenous students in science. I think this should be a critical goal both for our centre but also for future centres, and I think that it's important for us to continue to trailblaze in this area of diversity, and it's a clear next step for us as a whole centre. I'd also like to welcome and introduce our advisory board members. So the advisory board members are either watching live right now or they're going to be watching on the recording that we provide them at the end of this meeting due to different time zones. And this year we've combined our international and our national advisory board so that we have one board, and we have members of that board representing different areas, including different science topics, education outreach, as well as government and governance within Australia. I just wanted to introduce, for those of you who aren't familiar with our advisory board members, or you may not be familiar with some of the new ones, our advisory board chair is Tim Desir, and he's from Leiden University and is many of you may know him as the former ESO Director General. We also have Linda de Coney. She is from the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics in Germany, Garching. We have Lars Hernquist from Harvard University, and we're new to the board this year. We have Mary Putman from Columbia University. Mary received her PhD from the ANU, and she is a radio astronomer with a focus on H1 studies of nearby galaxies and the Milky Way. So she's on the board to fill a gap that we saw in radio astronomy. We've also got Sue Weston, who comes to us from our national board, and many of you would know her as the former Deputy Secretary for the Department of Industry. She's now CEO of Comcare. We also have Bobby Serini, also from our national board, and Bobby is the Director of Science and Learning at Questacon, which is Australia's National Science Education Outreach Centre. I'd also like to welcome the new members that are coming to our science meeting today from each node. And it's a particularly exciting day today because we have new members from our new nodes, Monash University, UNSW and Macquarie, and this is the first Astro 3D science meeting for many of them. So welcome to you all. And in June and July, we're going to be undertaking the formal legal processes to add these new nodes to our centre. For those of you new to the centre, Astro 3D is a $40 million centre of excellence, and it spans now 9 Australian universities, 2 Australian partners and 8 international partner organisations. We now have around 250 members in the centre, and we're bringing together radio astronomers, optical astronomers and theorists to answer some of the biggest questions in astrophysics. And the 3 main questions that Astro 3D has been put together to answer are how did the universe become ionized from the epoch of reionization to the present day? How did the matter and angular momentum build up in galaxies from the first galaxies of the universe to our own Milky Way? And how did the chemical elements build up from the first stars, the first galaxies, and then how did that evolve to the nearby universe and including our own Milky Way? So to answer these big questions, we're combining multi-wavelength data from Australian and international ground and space-based telescopes, and as well as simulations that are run on Australian as well as overseas supercomputers. So it's across different fields where the major progress and the major discoveries are often made. And this is really only made possible with the funding afforded by a Centre of Excellence. It allows us to collaborate across boundaries, both in space, so across geographical boundaries, but also across boundaries in terms of field science-wise. So today you're going to be seeing the exciting results of these collaborations, both within the surveys and projects in the centre, as well as you're going to start to see the results from these cross-project collaborations. And I think these are really exciting. And I want you to, as you watch the talks in other areas to yours, have a think about how you can collaborate across the different areas. This is what we're focusing on in the second half of this centre. Now, finally, I'm going to just wrap up my talk by just talking about things we're grateful for. So in these difficult times, many of us are seeing having impacts from COVID-19. We're seeing funding cuts to our departments as our universities struggle with the impacts of COVID-19. And countries around the world are experiencing and reeling from massive loss of life and turmoil due to COVID-19. And so in these difficult times, I think it's really important to be grateful for the things that we have and to think about how we can help others. One of the things that we do in my house around the dinner table is that we each say 3 things that we're grateful for that happened today. So today I'm grateful for the ARC funding that supports our excellent research and collaborations. And I'm particularly grateful for the longevity of that funding and the legal contracts that are in place that allows this funding to continue through this difficult period and right up to 2024. Today, I'm also grateful for the technology having come a long way, even the 10 years from Castro began 10 years ago. And the technology has really come a long way since then. And the fact that we're able to have this virtual meeting, we have 134 people registered. And right now we have 103 individual connections. And I don't think we would have dreamed this would be possible 10 years ago. So I'm grateful for these connections. And finally, I'm grateful for you all, the people in Astro 3D. So I think we really have a tremendous team of outstanding, engaged and active and positive people in Astro 3D. And this makes our centre truly a joy to be part of. V recently said, following our first round of COVID-19 extensions for students and postdocs, she said, "Thanks to you all for making Astro 3D a community with heart as well as smarts." It's absolutely true. And I'm so proud and I'm grateful to be part of a science team that has a heart as well as smarts. So today we have a fantastic lineup of speakers, and they're all going to be giving you an update on our progress, as well as science highlights and discoveries from each of the centre surveys and projects. Following each talk, or even during the talk, you're going to have an opportunity to post questions. And when you ask your questions, I'd like you to remember our code of conducts, which have been posted by Ingrid in our comments section of the webinar here today on Zoom. And I'd like you to remember we are a team with heart as well as smart. So when you ask your questions or when you send comments to people, please be polite, professional, and really importantly, be kind. I can't wait to see the talks today. I think my time's up. So without further ado, let's get going. And I believe the chair is going to take over. This is Brad, and chair the next science session. Thank you to everybody for joining today, and let's have an excellent and exciting and engaging day online.